I'm OGDuffy and welcome back, folks. Hope your life is treating you well and everyone's on the up and good and happy. What more can we ask for? So, without further ado, this week's game is a versus video, and this time we're looking at a great game by Capcom, 1985's Commando. Now, this is a great little shoot-em-up, and it wasn't related to the film of the same year starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. It wasn't a spin-off of that at all. Some people think it might be, but it wasn't. Okay, it was a completely standalone project. Maybe, I don't know, Capcom marketed it that way in a hope to get some sales off the back of the film. I don't know which one come first. But either way, the Spectrum version and the Commodore version of this were both excellent. Now, I can tell you now, this is going to be a very, very, very tough draw to me on my part. But hey, without further ado, let's take a look at the gameplay and let's see which one does it for us.
So here we go, this is the Commando. Obviously this is the coin-op, the arcade version. Now, as you can see, it was very colourful, it was quite cartoony in its graphics, but proved to be quite a success around the globe in general. Obviously released in Japan, then spread to Europe and the US, of course, and did very, very well. Won several awards, Golden Joystick included, in 1985 for best shoot 'em up and that sort of stuff. So it was very well received. So it was obvious that this was going to get a home port. So let's take a look and see how the home ports compared. First off, let's take a look at the ZX Spectrum. Again released in 1985, the same year as the arcade game. It crossed over very well. Obviously a complete lack of music on this version, but the Spectrum was very limited in its sound chip compared to the Commodore 64. Bit of colour clash occasionally, but to be honest, the gameplay more than made up for it. It was, as a conversion, it did very, very, very well. And the graphics had a bit of cuteness to them, and I loved the gameplay. The gameplay of this worked really well on this system. So, although it had lacked in some areas, the gameplay more than made up for that. Now, when this was released in 1985, you could buy this off the shelf for a grand total of £7.95. That was the original retail price of this game. I mean, imagine that. What a day to be alive, eh? And it was a high-end game, it really was. It was great. What more can we say about it? Not a lot, really. It was just really well done, and as a coin-op conversion, it was excellent. Also won Best Shoot 'em Up in the 1985 Crash Readers Awards, so it's not just me saying it was a great shoot-up. Hey, the people voted on that magazine, and it won the Best Coin-op of that year, or Best Shoot 'em Up of that year, so it's not just my opinion. So, without further ado, that's the ZX Spectrum version. Let's go take a look at the Commodore 64 and see how that compares. Okay, this is the Commodore 64 version, and obviously the very first thing we notice is the chopper from the original coin-op actually dropping you into the game. That did not happen on the ZX Spectrum. The big difference, of course, you will hear straight away is the soundtrack. This had a brilliant soundtrack for it, and it was written by Rob Hubbard. Programmed this for the Commodore 64, which had an amazing sound chip for its time, as you can obviously hear. I mean, the Spectrum version we looked at was the 48K version, so it didn't have the soundtrack. I understand that the 128K version of the Spectrum version of Commando did have a soundtrack, but I only had the 48K, so that's what I'm basing my review on. So, as you can hear, great soundtrack. I think the gameplay on this was slightly better. It was probably as fast, busier, probably flowed a little bit better, but again I still had a lot of love for the Spectrum version. But as you can see here, this is just a great job again made of this. Was sold loads back in the day along with the Spectrum version. Both were really good conversions, which makes this very difficult. So let's go to my verdict.
Okay, there we go. We've now seen both versions and obviously the original coin-op. This has been a mega tough call for me, and I'll tell you why. I loved it on both systems. I played it for the first time ever on the Spectrum 48K, and I have to say I fell in love with it. It was a really good shoot 'em up, and it was a busy game as well. You know, lots of sprites going on. There was a lot to do. And on the Commodore 64 version, the sound was brilliant. The soundtrack was immense, and as you can see how colourful the graphics were and all that. There's no colour clash like you get with the Spectrum and things like that. So for me, to be honest, in the versus rounds I've done, this has been the toughest call of them all. But I'm going for I'm going for a draw, and I'll tell you why. Spectrum gameplay does it for me. Commodore sound, graphics and gameplay also do it for me, but there are more levels on the Spectrum version. So it's a solid draw. So well done to both systems. Now, if you agree, let me know in the comments. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. And thanks for watching. I've been OGDuffy. Tune in. See you next time. Look after yourselves. If you watch the video and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe for more great videos. Thanks for watching.